Hello, today we're going to focus on creating rectangles on a coordinate plane. You're going to see problems just like this. Notice you are given a coordinate plane and there's 3 points already given to you on this coordinate plane. Your goal is to figure out what is the missing point to complete this rectangle. Your goal is to create that rectangle by finding where that point would lie on this coordinate plane. Now, the first thing I did when I saw this coordinate plane is I actually identified the x-axis and the y-axis. I even labeled x and y just to help me when solving this problem. I also labeled my origin, which is 0, 0, or here when my x and y axis meet, I just put a 0. Now we're working in quadrant 1 today, which means we have all positives in my x and my y axis. So notice here I already labeled it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way up to 10. But notice when I labeled it, I counted right on the grid, okay? I didn't go in the middle of the grid or anything. We don't have halves here. I mean, you do have halves, but we're going to only focus on the whole numbers for today. And my y-axis as well, I also labeled it with whole numbers increasing in the positive direction. Notice I have 1, 2, 3, and so on all the way up to 10, labeling my grid. Now I'm ready to plot my point. Now I'm going to actually do this in yellow so it matches my other points here. Notice I'm given point A, B, and C. So I'm going to just label my next point, point D, to complete this rectangle. Now if I put a point here and I was connecting these points, I'm going to find that I don't form an exact rectangle. So like I'm already going to connect these points here so you see where my potential new point should lie. Now by looking here, I see that my new point should be parallel to line segment AB, and it should also be perpendicular as well to wherever I'm going to place it. So notice if I place this point right here, I notice this is forming this exact rectangle, and I can test this out by now connecting my points. And when I connect my points, in fact, I do create a rectangle with 4 sides, 4 points, 4 right angles, creating that rectangle. Now I'm going to label that point, point D. Now I need to find the coordinates of point D. And notice when I'm writing this, I'm first labeling that point with a capital letter because I could have many points on this coordinate plane, and it's important that you put a label to that point so when you're describing it, you can identify it or call it point D. Now I'm going to look at D, and I'm going to look down towards my x-axis because when I'm writing an ordered pair, I always start with my x value. So I'm going to look down and I notice it hits the x-axis at 8. So 8 is the value of x, and now I need to find my y value as well for this ordered pair. So now I'm going to look to the left of D, and I'm looking to the left here and I notice it's hitting 5 along my y-axis. So that means my point to complete this rectangle called point D is 8, 5. Now I can confirm that this is correct because I'm going to pretend I'm going to start plotting this point. Start at my origin, I go to the right 8 spaces, then I go up 5 spaces and I hit point D. That's confirming that what I decided point D was to complete this rectangle is in fact correct. Now let's try another one. This time I have a coordinate plane, but nothing is labeled here. Now, as you're doing this, and many of you are getting much better at plotting points, you may feel that you don't need to label. And if you feel that way, that's fine. You don't have to label everything. But if you're struggling at all, you can take a moment, write this on your piece of paper, and label your x-axis, label your y-axis, count each unit. That's completely fine. Like here, I'm going to just label x and y just as a reminder for myself, and you can also label your x-axis with numbers just like I did for the previous problem. So now again I'm going to connect A, C, B, and I'm just going to continue on with A, B, C, and then do point D again, and I need to complete this to form a rectangle. Now again, if I put my point here and connect this, that doesn't form a rectangle, so that can't be correct. So I need to figure out where am I going to put my point to make a perfect rectangle. So now I'm going to actually plot my point right here, and in fact when I connect the next few points, I see that I formed a rectangle, and that's your goal. So now once I did that, I'm going to label this point D, and I'm going to figure out what my X and Y values are. So that way I can create my ordered pair, which is the answer to this problem. So now I'm going to look at point D. I'm going to look down at my x-axis, and I notice it's hitting right over here. So let me go back to my origin and count how many spaces until I hit this mark right here along my x-axis. 1, 2, 3. So that means I had 3 units, a 3 as my x value, and my y value, I'm going to look to the left here. Let me count to see how many spaces that was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that means my answer is 3, 7. Now notice I label this point with a capital letter. I use parentheses around my x and y value, and I put a comma in between the x and y values. That is how you correctly write an ordered pair. So take the time today to practice writing that correctly. It's important that we label it with our point D with a letter given to you, and then find out what your x and y value is, making sure that you're also writing that in the correct order. So now today you're going to see problems just like this one here. Notice it says find the coordinates of point D to make a rectangle. So in this problem I actually showed you what the correct answer should be. So notice here we figured out, okay, we have A, B, C. Let me connect it, determine where D should be. So I'm going to plot D right here to confirm that this is forming a rectangle here, or in fact a square, depending on the problem given to you. Now I'm going to look. Okay, I look down at my x value and I hit 7. I can confirm that by counting from my origin, which notice here, this is exactly how it was written. D. I labeled the point D. My x value is 7. I look to the left. Okay, I see my y. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My y value is 6. And this is what I'm typing in for my answer. No spaces or anything. And I'm including a capital letter D with parentheses and a comma between my x and my y value. If you use a lowercase letter, it will mark it wrong. If you forget your parentheses, it will mark it wrong. It's important to start to understand exactly how to write an ordered pair correctly. And that is the goal for today's activity. You're not only going to be graphing a point and figuring out the location of point D, but you're also going to be working on plotting and also writing the points and the ordered pairs in the correct format. So during today's video, if you want to refer back to this video at any time during today's activities, feel free to do so.